Yitz, I don't get it.
What don't you get?
So this week again, another double Parsha, and let me tell you what I don't get. The second Parsha, Parshat Kdoshim, starts with a great statement, probably our greatest mission statement as a nation. Kdoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani. We should be holy because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is holy. And when you think about holy people, you usually think about spiritual people, people who are not materialistic, people who are disconnected from materialism, people who disconnect themselves from this world. And with such a great statement, you would expect to follow the mitzvahs and what is the way we should conduct ourselves in order to be so holy. But when you take a look into the psukim of Parshat Kdoshim that follow that great statement, what you find is a lot of the social mitzvahs, a lot of the materialistic mitzvahs, going through the different mitzvahs a farmer should leave in his field, to even not stealing and not lying when you testify in court and things like that. Why are those mitzvahs, why are these psukim following that great big statement of Kdoshim to you? Why are these the mitzvahs that lead us to being a holy nation?
That's very interesting, and especially in contrast with the first Parsha, Achrei Mot, talking about the Kohen Gadol going in Yom Kippur. Here we have a spiritual person dressing up in spiritual clothes, going into this special place, and then we didn't hear about Kdoshim to you. Now, Kdoshim to you, and we get a list, as you said, of just regular mitzvahs. Almost every type of mitzvah you can find there somewhere in the list. So what is Kedusha, and how is this list of mitzvah actually lead us to that? So I think first of all, we need to understand that word, Kedusha. What does Kedusha actually mean? What does it mean to be Kadosh? Rashi writes, Kdoshim to you, Prushim to you, separated, which strengthens the question even more. What does Kedusha mean, and what does Rashi really mean? So actually, if we look at everywhere where we use the term Kedusha, we see that it's always actually tied to some physical thing. Beit HaMikdash, it's the physical house of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is called the Beit HaMikdash. When we do Kiddush, we've mentioned in the past, we need to have a cup of wine. It's always about taking something physical and giving it some meaning. You know, in the Gemara in Kiddushin, it has lists of other words that could be used instead of Harayat Mekudeshetli, and one of them is Harayat Meyuchedetli. You are special for me. I think that word actually describes Kedusha very well. But I'm saying when I'm talking about something is holy, I'm saying I'm making something, I'm taking something physical and making it special for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In Hebrew, we actually say when we dedicate something, if we buy a book and we write a dedication on the front, it's called a Hakdasha, because I went to a bookstore, there's many books of the same kind, they all seem the same on the outside, but once I put that dedication in the book, this book is, as Rashi said, separated from the others. It could be standing in the pile with the others, but still be totally different. That's what Kedusha is really about. It's not about actually separating yourself physically, being separated from the world, being outside and disconnected from everything. The opposite. It's about being in this world, but taking this world and dedicating it, making it special for, having that book among all other books, but not like any other. It's special for, it's unique for. And how do we do that? How do we achieve that Kedusha? That's exactly what this Parsha teaches us. In every aspect of our physical life, we give it meaning. We do it differently. We work in the field, but we leave a little bit for the poor. We respect our parents, and on and on and on. The entire list of mitzvot, whether it's ben adam lechavero, social mitzvah, ben adam lemakom, between man and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no matter what, we're talking about taking our physical life and putting meaning into it. That's what Kedushim to you. When Rashi says Prushim to you, we know another similar word. When we give maaser, when we give truma from the fruit, we mafrish trumot u'maasrot. You can't do trumot u'maasrot without fruit. You need regular fruit, but you take some of that fruit and you dedicate it. You make it special. You make it holy. That's what prushim to you means as well. It doesn't mean prushim separated. It means being in this world, but being separated, but being different. By looking within the physical world at everything, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want for me here? In this thing, in that thing, in every aspect of our lives, that's how we really achieve Kdoshim to you.
I really like what you're saying about Kedusha, and lehakdish something means to dedicate something. And as you were saying, bringing Kedusha into this world means we take the physical things and we dedicate them. We put purpose into them, more purpose than what they had, in order to elevate them to a higher level and give them a true meaning. It's really interesting that you mentioned the difference between Parashat Achrei Mot and Parashat Kdoshim that we're reading, because really Parashat Achrei Mot talks to the Kohanim, the holy people which are in a holy place and are really surrounded by holiness around them and kind of in a holy bubble, which is very different from Parshat Kdoshim, where Parshat Kdoshim starts with Hakadosh Baruch Hu telling Moshe, Daber el kol hadat b'nei Yisrael. If Parashat Achrei Mot was said to the Kohanim, well, Parshat Kdoshim is told to Am Yisrael, and Am Yisrael being very different from the Kohanim, don't live in that bubble, don't live in that sacred place. They live out in the field, they live out in the day-to-day life, where they have a lot of other things going on, and Parshat Kdoshim is meant for them, is meant for us, for our kind of life, for the life that we live, to take those materialistic things, to take that physical life that we live, but add purpose into it, add meaning into it, like we said in the past, Kadesh atzmecha b'mutar lecha, which is again thinking about what Rashi says in the Ramban, to take the line of Kdoshim to you means to separate yourself from the bad things, which is step one. You have to separate yourself from the bad things before you can add meaning, but then really the second step is, like we said in the past, Kadesh atzmecha b'mutar lecha, take the things that you are allowed to do and add holiness into them, add meaning into them, add extra purpose into them in order to elevate them, to elevate yourself, and to elevate the world that we live in. And obviously, this is not an easy thing to do. This is a very difficult thing to do. And even the Ramchal in Mekoros Below, when he talks about the whole inyan of Kedusha, of holiness, he says it's a very, very hard thing to achieve and a hard level to conquer in the levels that he brings. However, he says, Tchilato ba'avodah v'sofo b'gmul. The beginning is hard, but as you go in and as you work on it more, it gets easier and easier, and you get accustomed to that kind of life, and you get accustomed to the life of meaning, of life of purpose, and it will bring back purpose and meaning into your own life, into your own thought, and it will become a self-fulfilling cycle. And when you think about really holy people, we have to mention Rabbi Levine, and I heard this so many times from my father-in-law, that the people talk and look and mention Rabbi Levine as being one of the holiest people that Yerushalayim had back in the day, and my father-in-law always likes to point out and say, what made Rabbi Levine so holy? What made him so special? Not the fact that he separated himself from the world and he went and he became all spiritual and surrounded himself with books all day long. No, the fact that made him so holy because he was so involved with the people around him, because he cared so much for the people around him, and he added meaning to them. He added meaning into their lives, and through that, he was able to bring holiness into everybody else's life, and that's how people saw him being holy and being such a righteous person. And again, when we think about our day-to-day life, it's very hard to get to that thought that we have of somebody holy, who's somebody who's separated, who only cares about spirituality and has no physical aspect to his life. But that's not Yiddishkeit. That's not our belief. As we see in our Parsha, in order to be holy, you just have to take the materialistic thing, you have to take your materialistic life around you and add the right purpose into it, the right meaning into it. It's not about climbing these big spiritual mountains. It's about those little deeds, those little actions, leaving the pe'ah, leaving the leket, leaving the shicha, not telling a lie, saying the right thing, being the right person, being a good neighbor. It's about those little things we do every single day, every single hour of our life, doing the right thing with the right purpose, with the right meaning. That's what will lead us to being the holy nation we're supposed to be.
It's interesting you mentioned this contrast between the two parshas, because the first parsha is actually not about Kedusha, it's about Tahara. As it says in the Pasuk, and we mentioned on Yom Kippur, Ki bayom hazeh yetaher etchem mikol chatotechem lifnei Hashem titaru. It's about Tahara, versus our parsha that's about Kedusha. And you mentioned the Mesilat Yesharim, he also brings in those steps, he brings Tahara and then Kedusha. And it's very interesting when you look at them both, because when you look at Tahara in the Mesilat Yesharim, you see someone who's separated from the world, who's separated from anything, from the materialistic world. He's all spiritual, he's all pure, actually similar to us on Yom Kippur. We don't eat, we don't drink, we don't do anything, we daven all day. It's a spiritual day, what we call spiritual, but it's a day of Tahara. And only after that comes the Kedusha, which seems to be the exact opposite. It's someone who's involved in this world, he's not separated. So what's going on? Are we supposed to be separated or are we not? But actually what the Mesilat Yesharim is teaching us, and maybe the order of our two parshas is teaching us, is that one leads to the other. Because if, as we said, the essence of Kedusha is raising the world up, is being involved within this world, but constantly leading the world to a positive place, maybe to achieve that, we first need Tahara. We first need to not be a slave of this world. We need to be able to have a day without eating, without drinking. Once we're able to go through that stage, through that period, through that day where we're not slaves of this world, where we're not constantly, we need to eat, no, we're able to focus on the spiritual, then we're able to step back in this world. And now, because we're not slaves anymore, we're ready to lead the way. Living a normal life in a normal world, but adding meaning and adding purpose in every single aspect of our life, with every single little action, with that constant search of doing the right thing. That's, as you said, the way we achieve Kdoshim to you.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Shkoyach, Shabbat Shalom.
Shkoyach to you, good Shabbos, and we'll talk again next week. For more Talking Torah videos on different topics, check out our YouTube channel.